is going to affect your bottom line as a lost sale. Now, there's two ways that the shrinkage can affect your bottom line. One is that it's just a cost that you have to replace. For instance, if a bar back goes into the beer cooler and chugs down a Corona, you lost $1. Okay? It's going to cost you $1 to replace that Corona. That's a loss of cost. If a bartender drops a six-pack when he's restocking the cooler, what did you lose? The cost to replace the product. You didn't lose a sale. But when I meet with bartenders, I try to get them to understand that 50 to 70% of the losses behind your bar are going to be a lost sale. And I try to explain it to them this way. Almost everybody, when they go out to drink, they're going to get a certain number or amount of drinks of alcohol in their system till they get a little bit of a buzz, and then they stop. My wife, that may be 1 drink or 2. Me, I might have 4 drinks. There's probably some people that sitting in this room where that number may be a bit more than that. The point is that everybody has a different number where they catch that buzz, and they don't feel comfortable going past that, right? Especially with DUI laws. So the point being is, if I come into your bar, let's say I'm probably going to buy 4 Crown of Cokes. And your bartender, out of the goodness of their heart, pours me doubles and charges me singles. If I get 2 doubles in me, guess what? I'm done drinking. I know that I'm done drinking. How much money didn't go into your register? $10? I only had to buy 2. I didn't have to buy 4. If I come in and the bartender pours me correctly, and I pay for 2, but on 2 of them they say, have a couple on me. How much money didn't go in your register? $10. If I come in and they pour me correctly, they charge me correctly, they go to the register, they ring up 2, and money for 2 of them goes in their tip jar. What didn't go in the register? $10. So what I try to do is teach staffs there is no difference between overpouring, unauthorized giveaways, or outright theft. It affects your bottom line the same way. Bartenders have a very hard time dealing with this. So when you look at this, remember, you have a loss of cost or you have a lost sale. 50 to 70% is a lost sale of everything that goes on behind your bar. What does that mean to you? This chart shows what it means if it's a 50-50 split. And like I said, that's being conservative. Let's say that your monthly revenues, and you can kind of look and see where your monthly revenues are. Let's say that you're doing monthly revenues of $30,000. If you're on the low end, and your shrinkage is around 14%, in a year's time, that's $31,500 that didn't go into your pocket. If your shrinkage is 28%, on the higher end, that's $63,000. Now let's say that you're in the middle somewhere. Who here could use an extra $47,000, $46,000 in their pocket on those revenues? This is an average bar. This is what we find over and over again. How can you tell how much cash should be in the register at the end of the night? You can't, unless you use Bevanco. But there are checks and balances that you can use that's going to help you limit your overall expense. We talked about checks and balances a little bit. Most businesses have a series of checks and balances in place so they don't lose money. For most part, for example, bars have pretty good checks and balances on cash. In that, I'm sure that most of you count your cash drawers at the end of every night or after every shift. Okay? And you count them because you want to make sure that whatever the bartender rang up is in that cash drawer. Okay? So that's a good check. Now I also assume that you have some kind of a limitation on what they're allowed to be short. So let's say that you set a limit, you guys, I don't want you more short than $4, $5 on your cash drawer. So the question becomes, what do you do when a bartender consistently is short more than that amount? A good check and balance is that you give them a warning. You write them, give them a second warning, a second write-up if it happens again. And if it happens a third time, I hope that you would part ways with that individual, because a very important skill shift for a bartender is to be able to control cash, right? So you have a good check and balance. The check is the actual counting of the money. And you balance that. It alerts you in a timely manner when you have a problem, and you balance that with an operational procedure, a write-up or termination, that effectively solves that problem. That's a good cash control, and most bars do that. Here's the thing, though. Because the bartenders know that you're going to be counting that cash, and if any's missing, they're going to hold you, you're going to hold them accountable, guess what? Very rarely do bartenders ever take cash. They know each and every time that they do, you are going to catch them, if you have that good check and balance. Unfortunately, bartenders also know that there's no way for you to count your liquid cash and be able to tell how much money should be in the register. So if you have a good cash control, they're not just going to take it out of the register, but they're going to find other ways to do it. So cash handling procedures that deter shrinkage. That's what I want to talk about. All of the things that we're going to cover today, it may sound like I'm against bartenders. I'm not. But what I'm asking you to do, go ahead and trust your staffs, but you need to verify. Trust and verify. When I meet with bartenders, I always ask them the questions. Who's more honest, bank tellers or bartenders? There's always a bartender that says, bartenders! And I always say, okay, go ask the first 10 people you meet on the street. Every one of them is going to say bank tellers are more honest than bartenders. Why is that? I don't think bank tellers are born any more honest than bartenders. The banks have systems in place to hold their people accountable. Banks have hard currency. It's pretty easy. You have liquid currency. It's not easy. Okay? That's one of the biggest problems. One of the first things you can do is let's talk about registers first. Some of you out there probably have a register, and you ask the bartender to, he sells a Bud Light, he sells a Heineken, he goes down the road, he sells a pint of Miller Lite, he sells a Jaeger bomb there. He adds it up in his head, he collects the money, he goes to the register, and he rings in $16.75. If you're asking your bartender to do that, you're losing a lot of money. Essentially, if that's the kind of register you have, all you have is a shoebox. It does about the same thing. For $500 on cash registers online, you can get a Samsung ER650 that gives you 80 preset keys, so you can have well-called premium top-shelf keys. You don't rely on your bartender adding up anything anymore. And you can get them to ring up everything properly. It doesn't cost that much money, and I'll guarantee you, if you change to something like that, you're going to pay for that register in 2 weeks. It's that simple. If you've got a system like that, you're losing quite a bit of money. Some of you have registers that are like a Samsung, okay, that has a bunch of preset keys, and they are ringing up that way. Some of you probably have a POS system where they're ringing up by the drink, by the brand, Beefeater, etc., Jack Daniels. If in either of those cases you have an open liquor key, you have now changed your register back to a shoebox. Because all night long, somebody, a bartender, could be selling dollar drinks, ringing it under open liquor. And every time they go to the register, they're making a transaction. Who's going to know? So there's two things you need to do with your open liquor keys. One is get rid of it completely, or if you feel you can't, you need to verify every open liquor ring every night. So you need to look at that tape and see the number of open liquor rings that you have. And if there's 20 of them for $110, you better be asking some questions on, what are you guys ringing under open liquor? What don't you have as a key? You know, open liquor rings, in that case, you should maybe have one or two. But that's a good place to start. And that's a hole in the system that the dishonest person will take advantage of. That reminds me of, I started bartending at the, anybody heard of the Sidetrack Bar in Mount Zion, Wisconsin? Yep. Okay, well that's where I started. And there was a little German lady who owned the place. So she taught me the 50-20-25 rule. She said 25% of your employees would never steal a dime from you. 25% of your employees will steal.